Hi everyone and welcome to your weekly energy update. This is a general tarot guidance taking a look at how this week's energies are likely to play out in our lives, both individually and also collectively. The first part of the reading is the overall energy, and here we have the Ace of Cups reversed, the Emperor and the Lovers. Now first of all, these cards are very powerful together. The Emperor and the Lovers are both major arcana, so this already indicates that this is going to be a very important week, one way or another, especially from an emotional perspective, because that is the gravity of the Ace of Cups, and since it's reversed, it doesn't mean anything negative or bad, but it does mean that whatever takes place in our lives, or perhaps the world stage, it is definitely going to surprise us. We might have to process how we truly feel about that, and more importantly, how it is affecting our emotional well-beings in the present moment, in the immediate future, but also in the longer-term future. Of course, it goes without saying that this is basically also written in the stars, because on the 17th of February, we have the first perfection of the Saturn-Uranus square, where the moon is also tightly conjunct Uranus, and the moon does signify this Ace of Cups, so our emotional worlds, our feelings, our emotional stability, and from a collective perspective, well, it is the people and how they feel about certain things, events, and even people. Judging by the astrology of this week, this Ace of Cups reverse can also represent a rebellious attitude, rebellious feelings, emotions just bursting to the surface. But they do have a powerful external trigger, as I said, both individually and collectively, because that is what the Emperor and the Lovers points to. Now, first of all, from a collective perspective, this Emperor can represent, for example, a world leader, a very important international person. It can also represent authority, the government, or it can also signify an important power player internationally speaking, a very influential country in the world politics. The United States, China, Russia, etc. are fine examples. And these Lovers can represent from a collective perspective an alliance, a union, the advancement of diplomatic relationship, an agreement, a treaties, or some form of contract which has, international force. It can also represent the relationship of the people, citizens, and centralized power. So it is very likely that something coming from these areas, it can be an event, a decision, the adaptation of a certain kind of tactic, the change of legislation, or something that a world leader, the leader of a certain culture, says, does, thinks, expresses. The Emperor is a very action-oriented card, so yes, it does symbolize the status, but that status is also correlated with action, so what they do with their power, what they do with their authority, what they do with their decision-making force, because if a world leader makes an important decision, choice, well, basically the whole culture, the whole country, the subject, so to speak, are immediately affected one way or another. So even though this isn't like a negative combination, it will certainly surprise us, and let's hope that the surprise is a pleasant one, a positive one. Maybe it is something for the greater good, but no matter what you do, regardless your status, you just cannot please everyone. So of course there is going to be strong opposition from those people who might feel disadvantaged or threatened by whatever this emperor does or speaks or decides to accomplish. Another example of how I personally see this energy playing out, well, the Lovers, one of its more hidden symbolism is that of discrimination. This isn't the kind of racial, abusive, targeted discrimination, but maybe certain measures, for example, the emperor, it can represent the coercive force of the state, of the law, of authorities. Certain measures they implement might seem to favor a certain kind of category, maybe from social or economic perspective, and not be as favorable or not seem as favorable, fair or just to other people, so this might stir up a very big controversy. But of course the good side to this energy is that nothing is set in stone. This is just an intention, this is just a plan, this is just a discussion, so to speak, about something that they wish to do in the future, so it is nothing that cannot be changed. So this Ace of Cups reversed is actually a good sign, because if it makes people that unhappy, if there are very many people who disagree with it, well then of course they're going to readapt and change. And the more positive side to this energy, well, if something makes people very unhappy, that Ace of Cups reversed, then centralized power, authorities, world leaders, whoever it is who is in charge, they have to listen and they have to take action, as in the Lovers can symbolize that they have no other choice but to do what is needed, what people demand of them, so that people feel supported, they feel protected, they feel that authorities are working in their favor and not against them. The Lovers, a harmonious relationship. Now from an individual perspective, this can be a surprising moment, maybe a shocking moment, from so very many different perspectives. And here I do believe that one of the ways that this energy is going to play out individually is that this Ace of Cups reverse symbolizes that we are going to be reminded by some external trigger of the fact that the old normality, the things that used to give us emotional comfort maybe just a year ago, are already history, and there is nothing we can do to regain those or reenact them. We have to change, shift, and even emotionally get out of our comfort zones. Maybe the way we pursue happiness, personal satisfaction, relationship, interhuman connections has changed in such a radical way that we have to just reinvent ourselves and reinvent what happiness, what that Ace of Cups means for us personally. Like one example, one simple example, maybe there were a lot of people who were seeking happiness by finding a lover, establishing a family, partnership, romance, etc. And because of the very life-impacting global changes, they all of a sudden woke up to the fact that yes, that is absolutely true, that emotional well-being, partnership, finding that special someone means happiness for me, but right now I have to focus on other things. For example, my material security, my longer-term future, because if all of those things are in the air, ungrounded, there is too much uncertainty in life, well, a relationship cannot simply mean a greater sense of happiness, because you can have all the love in the world if there isn't, for example, a roof over our heads to give a home, to give a material, physical stability to that love. Well, it will not really do much for us. Or for other people, it can be quite the opposite. Or maybe up to this point, they have been focusing so much on material things, their careers, their material stability, business, transactions, etc. And due to these global changes, maybe they have lost out on business, on work opportunities, maybe material goals, maybe certain opportunities have simply disappeared and they have this free time, or maybe they are forced to spend more time with themselves, and that leads to the realization that this is such a good moment in life to form new relationships or to simply pursue the more emotional, maybe romantic, maybe sensual goals in life. And for others still, this can simply represent a really strong and powerful period of emotional healing, recovery, regeneration. We do have the sun entering into the sign of Pisces, a karmic part of the sky where each year when the sun activates that part of the sky, that usually marks a time of purification, karmic closures, finding greater emotional clarity, which leads to stability and a greater sense of psychological well-being. So the emphasis is definitely going to be placed on feeling, sorting out the past in order to make place for the future. So this emperor can very well represent the self, where we have authority over ourselves, our lives. This is where we have to make important decisions, choices, take action for our greater happiness, for our greater well-being. And that Lover's card can also represent new or old allies, people who want to help us, people who feel exactly the way we do, so that is already something common that we can find in our connections with others. And why not, for some people, their emotional worlds, that Ace of Cups reversed, might be shocked by someone new entering their lives, either from a romantic perspective like falling in love, or any other beneficial partnership, but which does come as a surprise. It does come unexpectedly, and that means that we have to process it. We have to ask ourselves how we feel about this and how does this affect our future choices, plans, and decisions. This can also be a humanitarian type of energy, where that emperor represents us having the courage and inner power to stand up for other people, for example, those who are disadvantaged, or certain external circumstances which are not so favorable, for example, a moment of crisis which might affect the community. It brings people together, and through some kind of humanitarian gesture or solidarity, you get connected to new people who are definitely going to be valuable acquaintances in your life in the future, even the short-term future. And also an even more positive side to this energy, how it is likely to play out in the lives of some of us. Well, you know, the tarot can be interpreted and read in so very many different ways. We can emphasize on the philosophy of the card, on the numerology of the card. We can take into consideration the astrological symbolism. But sometimes we just have to look at the picture and see what it depicts, what it tells us. And I cannot help but notice this is where the Emperor and the Lovers both depict a strong person who intervenes in our lives. Now, if you look closely at the Lover's card, that depicts a mythological moment when Perseus, the hero, saves Andromeda from the sea monster. So maybe for some very, very lucky people out there, this is going to be an episode where a hero pops up and just saves the day. Someone unexpected helps you out, And many times that someone can also be an authority, an institution, and believe it or not, maybe the government, maybe it means that you are going to benefit from something which really, really helps your situation. But of course, it can be a person, it can be your prince or princess on the white horse coming and taking off the chains, emotional chains, material chains. So it can be someone leading you towards greater freedom. Now for the guidance part of this reading, we have the Seven of Wands reversed and the Ace of Swords reversed. Now this also means surprises and shocking moments where you have to stop a little bit and just ask yourself, what are your thoughts about this? What is the greater truth behind whatever happened? How you feel about this? And ultimately how it is changing your future goals, desires, and whatever you want to accomplish. That Seven of Wands. What you're fighting for, what you're standing up for. For other people, this can be a very important communication, that Ace of Swords, and that communication holds the energy of a truth, maybe a personal truth, or it can be an information, for example, what it is that you need to do in a very practical manner to accomplish your goals and desires. This can be the energy of A plus B equals C, so a very strong practical solution, but which has an element of discomfort to it, either because it is something you have never done before, or it is something very, very new, or it is maybe an opportunity or a communication, for example, a job offer which you just didn't expect, and immediately when it enters your life you don't even know what to think of it, how you feel about it. Only after a few days of thinking it through or contemplating are you able to reach a greater state of clarity. And this is also so very typical to a Mercury retrograde season. So basically, this combination of cards says, be ready to be surprised, or be ready for the unexpected. A surprise may be. But before you can do anything with it, you have to think it through, analyze it, and of course, have moments of deeper contemplation. Of course, none of these cards depict a very comfortable energy, so chances are that for some people maybe it is not so pleasant news or a truth reaching them which is not that easy to face, to behold. But ultimately it does serve the greater good. It does serve us to be able to look at the big picture of the future more clearly. And symbolically speaking, of course, us to be able to find the right tactics to get where we want to get in the future. For example, if someone in your life is not worthy to be trusted, or are very unlikely to hold the promise they made, well, then this Ace of Swords reverse can represent that realization, which is uncomfortable, but it does serve the greater good. Or it can also represent that certain options or choices which you thought you had suddenly disappear, they become invalid, but that is also a great help, because you won't waste any energy on them. The Seven of Wands reversed, conserving energy and turning the focus inwards. So in conclusion, even though whatever can happen this week may be uncomfortable, but if we're really patient with ourselves and try our best to figure our situations out without that turning into overthinking, this will give all of us the chance to be one step ahead of our problems, to have and come up and perfect the right tactics. So welcome the new without fearing it. Welcome any information which leads to greater clarity, even if that might be slightly uncomfortable. And now the final part of the reading is what to be careful with. And here we have the Eight of Coins reversed and the Sun reversed. Now this is really simple, this is really straightforward. The Eight of Coins reversed speaks about sudden changes in our future plans. It means unexpected changes in the way we want to accomplish certain material goals. For some people, it might be related to their careers, their jobs, their livelihood. And even though whatever changes or unexpected twists and turns of events takes place, it can make you feel a little bit ungrounded, a little bit unstable materially, or feeling like you're not 100% in control of your material life or the outcome of certain things. And from a collective perspective, this can also represent an unexpected, very sudden and radical shift or instability in stock markets, for example, currencies, financial matters, the world economy, the World Bank, etc. But ultimately, the Sun reversed tells us that this is the times that we are going through together collectively. So regardless of what happens, regardless of how unstable or ungrounded you may be feeling in the moment, well, know that everyone is pretty much the same. No one is feeling the opposite of this. No one has this sense of security or a very good foresight about the material future. Because even those people who are doing very well business-wise, materially in the present moment, well, that can change so very, very quickly in an instant. Today you might have business. Today whatever you're doing is extremely valuable, and tomorrow that can change immediately. Of course, the fact that we're all in this together is not a consolation for anyone, but at least we know that it is nothing personal. For many people, this present moment instability and insecurity may mean absolutely nothing. From a karmic perspective, there might not be a greater lesson in this, except the fact that this is how a world change, this is how a shift of value system feels like. From a collective perspective, of course. And as a final advice, it can also signify not to become extremely desperate and just embrace out of fear the first opportunity that comes our way and offers us some kind of solution, especially if our hearts, our feelings, our emotions don't resonate with it. So do not make choices, decisions, especially those that are legally binding, out of desperation, fear, because the energy of change also involves that things can very quickly and suddenly shift for the better as well. So it's really, really important to stay hopeful and focus on a positive, constructive, self-supportive, self-nurturing mindset and way of thinking, because if anything can influence the future, that Eight of Coins, well, that is our way of thinking, our worldview, and what we focus on. So the less fear we have in our hearts, that Sun reversed, the more positive and fruit-bearing our future options, choices, opportunities, and chances to get where we desire to get are going to get, because if that is what we attract in our lives, trusting the self means that the universe also tends to trust you. So if you trust your heart, if you trust your feelings, if you trust your passions, the Sun, that is already a way through which you communicate to the universe that you found your truth, you are aligned with yourself, with your story, and the great divine intelligence will mirror that. So expect the unexpected can also have the most positive and delightful meaning, and I really hope that this is what all of us are going to receive. Well, this concludes your reading. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed and safe week. Until next time, bye for now.